The wind screamed across the high desert like a dying coyote, carrying the smell of dust and iron. Elias Thorne stood on the splintered porch of his one-room adobe, squinting into the glare. 300 Apache riders crested the ridge in a black line, lances catching the sun like needles of fire. Their war cries rolled down the valley, a sound that could curdle milk and stop a man's heart. Elias' knees buckled. He was 63, alone, and armed with nothing but a rusted Henry rifle, a lame mule, and a trap everyone in Tucson called insane. He had built it himself, night after night, hauling stones by moonlight until his hands bled. A spiral of boulders, knee-high walls, and shallow ditches that looked like the ravings of a fevered mind. Crazy old coot, the stagecoach drivers laughed when they passed. Building a maze for ghosts. Elias never explained. He only smiled, the way a man smiles when he knows a secret too gentle for the world. The riders came on. Elias' heart hammered so loud he thought they could hear it. He lifted the rifle, then let it fall. Bullets would do no good against 300. Instead, he stepped off the porch and walked straight toward them, arms open, empty palms catching the sun. The lead warrior, a tall man with a scar that split his cheek like a canyon, raised a hand. The line halted. Horses snorted. Dust settled. Silence pressed in, thick as wool. Elias spoke in the Spanish he had learned from his wife, Rosa, before fever took her. I have water, he called. Cool water from the spring. And bread still warm. He pointed to the low stone wall that ringed his yard like a child's drawing of a fort. The scarred warrior, his name was Taza, tilted his head. Apaches did not stop for bread. They stopped for blood. Yet something in the old man's eyes, steady as creek stones, held him. Taza dismounted. 20 warriors followed, rifles ready. They stepped over the first ring of boulders. Elias did not flinch. He walked backward, leading them deeper into the spiral. The path narrowed. Orbis clopped on hidden flagstones. Children on ponies giggled at the strange game, then fell quiet when their fathers glared. Elias reached the center, a circle no wider than a wagon wheel, ringed by a trough brimming with water so clear it mirrored the sky. Beside it sat a rough-hewn table covered in a red checkered cloth, Rosa's cloth, faded but proud. On it, loaves of sourdough, still steaming, jars of honey the color of sunrise, strips of dried venison glistening with fat. A single tin cup waited beside a ladle. Taza stared. His men stared. No ambush. No soldiers hiding in the rocks. Only an old man and a feast. Elias lifted the ladle. My wife baked this morning, he lied gently. Rosa had been dead 7 years, but the bread was fresh, he had risen before dawn, kneading grief into dough. She always said hunger makes enemies of us all. A boy no older than 12 slipped from his pony and darted forward. His tongue touched his cracked lips. Taza's hand shot out, but the boy was already drinking. Water spilled down his chin like a baptism. He grabbed a hunk of bread, tore it with small white teeth, and moaned, a sound so purely happy it cracked the air. One by one, warriors lowered their rifles. The spiral had done its work. To reach the center, each man had to turn his back on the man behind him, trusting the path. Trust was the real trap. Elias had wagered everything on it. Taza took the cup last. His fingers brushed Elias, callus against callus. He drank. The water was sweet with minerals, cold as snowmelt. He closed his eyes. For a moment, the scar on his face softened. Then came the twist no one expected. From the ridge above, a bugle blared. Blue-coated cavalry, 50 troopers under Captain Hargrove, thundered into view. They had trailed the Apaches for days, smelling glory. Hargrove raised his saber. Fire on my command. Elias' stomach dropped. The soldiers saw only hostiles. They did not see the boy licking honey from his fingers or Taza's shoulders sagging with sudden, unbearable fatigue. No. Elias shouted. He ran toward the cavalry, waving both arms like a scarecrow in a gale. A bullet whizzed past his ear, warning shot or poor aim, he couldn't tell. He kept running. Taza watched the old man place himself between rifles and children. Something broke open in the warrior's chest, a soundless fracture. He had come for scalps and horses. Instead, he found a grandfather shielding his enemies with his own ribs. Old. Tassabe Jobed in Apache. His men froze. He strode forward, planted himself beside Elias, and faced the cavalry. 299 warriors followed, forming a living wall. Captain Argrove's horse reared. Torne, you traitor. Step aside. Elias' voice cracked but did not break. These men are guests in my home. Jueje killed them over my dead body. A lone heartbeat. Wind whipped the flag on Argrove's lance. Then the captain saw the table, the empty rifles, the children with honey on their chins. His saber lowered an inch. Tassa spoke, surprising everyone with careful English learned from traders. Old men give water. Hibe bread. Hibe, trust. He placed a hand over his heart. We take nothing. We leave nothing but thanks. Argrove's adjutant, a young lieutenant with frightened eyes, whispered, Sir, the general wants prisoners, not corpses. The captain spat dust. Damn your general. But he sheathed the saber. What happened next would be told around campfires for generations. Elias invited the soldiers to eat. Hargrove refused at first, pride thicker than jerky, but his men were starving. One private snuck a slice of bread. Tenanote. Sewn blue coats mingled with buckskin. Someone produced a fiddle. A boy showed a corporal how to whistle through a blade of grass. Laughter rose like smoke. Tassa pulled Elias aside. From a pouch at his belt he drew a necklace, turquoise beads and a single eagle feather. For the woman who baked, he said. Elias' eyes filled. He accepted the gift with both hands. Night fell purple and sudden. Stars crowded the sky like spectators. The Apaches camped in the spiral, soldiers on the ridge, close enough to share coffee, far enough to save face. Elias sat between worlds, bone-tired, heart wide open. At dawn, Tassa approached again. We ride north. The bluecoats will follow. Elias glanced at Hargrove, who was nursing a hangover and a crisis of conscience. Ieje ride with you Amal, Elias said. Make sure they remember what they saw. They rode out together, 300 Apaches, 50 soldiers, one old man on a mule that limped but never quit. At the dry wash, Elias halted. He shook Tassa's hand. No words. Used the grip of two men who had seen the worst in each other and chosen something braver. The Apaches vanished into the shimmer. The soldiers turned back, strangely quiet. Hargrove never filed his report. Rumor says he burned it. Elias returned to his adobe. The spiral walls still stood, now scattered with hoofprints and crumbs. He baked again the next morning, leaving a loaf on the table with the tin cup. Weeks later, a lone rider left a pouch of pinyon nuts in its place. Then nothing. Then everything. Years passed. Children grew. Wars flared and faded. But travelers on the old stage road began to notice, whenever Apache and settler crossed paths near the spiral ranch, rifles stayed slung. Water was offered. Names were asked. Someone always mentioned the old man who fed 300 enemies and stopped a massacre with bread. Elias died on a February night, warm inside his blankets, Rosa's red cloth folded on his chest. They buried him in the center of the spiral, under the trough that never ran dry. On his stone, carved by a stonemason who had once been that honey-faced bow. Here lies Elias Torne. Who trapped hearts, not men. With water, bread, and courage. The spring still flows. The walls still stand. And on quiet evenings, if you listen past the wind, you can hear laughter echoing in the stones, 300 warriors, 50 soldiers, one old man, and a woman's recipe for sourdough that turned out to be a recipe for peace. Kindness is the only trap that catches everyone. Sit it once, and the whole world walks in willingly.